By the time I understood what Warren Vale was doing, he had already photographed my insurance card, copied my appointments, and convinced my children I was not safe alone. He did it with casseroles, with church bulletins, with the soft voice people use when they want an old man to feel grateful for being managed. I was 82, widowed 3 years, slower on stairs maybe, but not gone. What Warren did not know was that Carol had watched him before she died. My wife had left instructions, and the first one was hidden behind the thermostat. But I did not find the thermostat note first. I found the folder because Bonnie vomited on the kitchen rug at 6:03 in the morning. That is how trouble announces itself when you are 82, not with thunder, not with music, with a 7-pound terrier named Bonnie looking ashamed under the refrigerator light, while her sister Lucy stood by the water bowl like a witness. I had the paper towels in hand before my knees finished complaining. Carol used to say those dogs had stomachs made of porcelain and personalities made of unpaid bills. Every morning I cooked their little meal in the same scratch saucepan. Turkey, rice, a spoon of pumpkin, Bonnie's medicine hidden just right. I cleaned the rug. I reached under the kitchen island for the lemon spray. That was when I saw the blue edge beneath the mail pile. Warren had been at that island the evening before, helping me sort the drawer where Carol kept warranties and appliance manuals. Peter had called in the middle of it. Warren gathered his papers too quickly, smiling the whole time, and missed one. Plain folder, white label, my name on the tab, Mike Mercer, care options. Inside were brochures for assisted living communities north of Cleveland. A printed form titled Helper Authorization. A photocopy of my insurance card. A page of talking points in the careful block handwriting of Warren Vale. Mike refuses future care planning. Mike is overly attached to his late wife's dogs. Mike talks to Carol as if she is still alive. Mike becomes defensive about finances. Mike may not understand household risk. The last line read, "Family will resist if approached too directly." I read it the way I once read a rail inspection report after a derailment, slowly, then again, to make sure I had not mistaken one failure for another. Warren Vale was not my son. He was not my brother. He was not even an old friend. He was the man from church who brought soup after Carol died. That made it worse in a quieter way. If family takes liberties, people call it love getting clumsy. If a stranger takes liberties, there's another name for it. But you do not always know the name when he is standing at your door with a casserole dish and his collar buttoned. Warren was 68, silver-haired, careful with his shoes, and famous in our corner of Hudson for being useful. He drove widows to appointments. He put folding chairs away after church suppers. He knew which pharmacy delivered and which funeral home overcharged for flowers. He had the kind of face people trusted because it looked as if it had already forgiven them. What made the folder insulting was not that Warren thought I was old. I was old. 82 is not a rumor. I had the cardiologist, the pill organizer, and the birthday candles to prove it. What insulted me was that he mistook lonely for available. 3 weeks earlier, the Hendersons' air conditioner quit on a Sunday when the humidity had turned the whole street into a wet towel. Their repair company said compressor and gave them a number that would have made a younger man panic. I stood beside the condenser, listened for half a minute, and asked Linda Henderson for a flashlight and the little screwdriver from her junk drawer. Not the compressor, swollen capacitor, loose spade connector, $31 in parts, 20 minutes, cold air by supper. The week after that, Mr. Alvarez brought his grandson to my kitchen because the boy had financed a truck he could not afford. The salesman had hidden the damage inside a monthly payment. I wrote the interest out longhand. I watched the boy's face change when the math told him the truth without humiliating him. Numbers can be cruel. Laid out gently, they can save a young man's pride. 2 days before Warren called me confused, I saw the Patel twins walking their bicycles instead of racing them past my driveway. Their mother said they were busy. I knew better. One boy was limping. The other had slowed down so his brother would not feel left behind. That is not medicine. That is not genius. That is the habit of paying attention. My mind was not gone. My mind was the thing the neighborhood still borrowed when something needed fixing. Carol had been gone 3 years, long enough for people to stop lowering their voices when they said her name. Long enough for the casseroles to end. Long enough for everyone to decide grief had a schedule and mine was running late. The house still carried her. Her straw gardening hat hung by the back door. Her reading glasses sat beside the book she never finished. In the pantry, her labels told me where everything belonged. Flour, sugar, rice, dog treats, not people cookies, Mike. People think a widower stays in a house because he cannot let go. Sometimes you stay because the house is not a tomb. It is evidence. Somebody loved here. Somebody fought here. Somebody burned biscuits here and laughed until she cried. Somebody squeezed your hand after a bad diagnosis and said, "Well, we will just have to be braver than we planned." Carol and I bought the house in Hudson in the 1990s after my railroad safety work moved us north from Dayton. It was not grand. Brick front, stubborn gutters, a garage too narrow for modern trucks, a kitchen window that caught the morning light like it had been hired for the purpose. Carol turned the back corner into a garden. I turned the garage into a system. Pegboard, labeled bins, coffee cans full of screws old enough to vote. That was our division of labor. She made things grow. I kept things from falling apart. Warren first appeared at the funeral reception with a foil-covered pan and the soft voice people use around fresh grief. Carol was a remarkable woman, he said. She was, I told him. He looked around my kitchen as if honoring it. She loved this house. That should have comforted me. Instead, for a reason I could not name then, I felt my shoulders tighten. Warren kept coming, not every day. He was too smart for that. He came often enough to feel kind, and rarely enough to feel accidental. He fixed the stuck latch on the side gate. He dropped off church bulletins when I missed services. He brought Bonnie and Lucy little treats until I told him Carol had rules about their stomachs. "Of course," he said. "I forgot. She was particular. Carol had been particular. I loved that about her." Warren said it as if it were a charming defect. My children liked him. Peter lived in Dublin and was preparing to move to Cincinnati for work. My oldest had become a regional operations director, the kind of man who could say systems integration without blinking. He called every Sunday, usually from a room where a printer was running or a suitcase was open. Susan lived in Worcester and worked as a speech pathologist for the school district. She had her mother's mouth and my stubbornness, which meant she could say a hard thing gently and still expect you to obey it. Neither of them saw what Warren was doing because Warren never looked like a problem from a distance. To Peter, Warren was a local support system. To Susan, Warren was a compassionate friend. To me, at first, Warren was one more chair at the edge of grief. Then, the help changed shape. He started bringing in the mail if he arrived before I did. "Porch pirates," he said, smiling. He offered to organize the drawer where Carol kept warranties. "Just so your kids don't have to hunt for things later." He drove me to a cardiology appointment after my truck battery died and told the nurse, with a laugh, that I was stubborn about symptoms. "Railroad men," he said. "They think they can inspect their own bodies." The nurse laughed. I did too. Affection and accusation can wear the same shirt if the light is bad. The first time he mentioned assisted living, he did it while holding Lucy. "I know you love them," he said, rubbing her ears, "but there may come a time when the house and the dogs are too much." "There may come a time when I take up juggling," I said. "No need to buy the balls yet." He laughed. Warren never missed a chance to appear delighted by resistance. It made him look patient. The morning I found the folder, I did not confront him. An angry old man is easy to dismiss. People have words for that. Confusion, agitation, poor regulation. I fed the dogs. I walked Bonnie and Lucy under the maples, past Linda Henderson's house, where she waved with a coffee mug in her hand. "Girls looking fancy today, Mike." "They know it," I said. Every neighbor felt like evidence. Linda saw me daily. Mr. Alvarez trusted me with his garage code. Frank Kessler, my old co-worker, still claimed he could hear a bad bearing from half a mile away. If I was failing so completely, it was strange how many people trusted me with keys, tools, pets, and grandchildren. When I came home, Warren was on my porch. He had a white bakery box in his hands. "Bear claws," he said. "Your favorite." They were not my favorite. They had been Carol's. "Kind of you," I said. His eyes went to the folder under my arm. Only for a second. Men like Warren do not stare. Staring is for amateurs. "Everything all right?" Bonnie got sick. He sighed with practiced sympathy. "Mike, that is what I worry about. You should not have to manage all this alone. All this. The house. The dogs. My life." Behind him, across the street, Eli Barrett was pushing a mower up Mrs. Klein's driveway. Eli was 16, all elbows and suspicion. His younger brother Sam was 15 and softer around the edges. They lived 3 houses down and had been mowing lawns since their father left for Arizona and forgot to be ashamed of it. Carol used to pay them too much and pretend not to notice. The boys still came around. Eli liked my garage because tools did not flatter you. A wrench either fit or it did not. Sam liked Carol's garden and the dogs, especially Lucy, who had the moral flexibility to love anyone holding toast. That afternoon, Eli found me in the garage. He stood in the doorway like a boy reporting a fire he did not start. "Mr. Mercer, if I tell you something, you can't say it came from me." I set down the socket wrench. "All right." "Mr. Vale took pictures in your kitchen." "Pictures of what?" Eli looked toward the house. "Papers. Your insurance card, maybe. Something with your signature. I saw him through the side window when I was putting the mower away. A forged signature is not concern. It is a hand reaching into your life and trying to wear your name." "Anything else?" Eli's jaw moved, like he was chewing words into smaller pieces. "He told Mrs. Klein you missed your doctor's appointment last Tuesday, but I saw the card on your fridge. It said Thursday." I thanked him. He did not look relieved. Children who have watched adults lie learn that truth does not set you free right away. Sometimes it just tells the storm where you are. After Eli left, I stood in front of the refrigerator and looked at the appointment card under the little rooster magnet. Thursday, 10:30, plain as a church bell. Warren had not guessed wrong. He had copied wrong. That was when I noticed Carol's spring maintenance list tucked behind the calendar. I had avoided it for months. Her lists hurt more than photographs. Photographs showed what was gone. Her lists expected me to continue, replace AC filters, sharpen mower blades, ask Frank about the garage outlet. If someone ever uses the refrigerator calendar against you, don't argue with the refrigerator. Look behind the hallway thermostat. That was Carol. A sentence could sound like a joke and still carry a key. Bonnie and Lucy followed me because any activity involving a screwdriver might involve dropped cheese. I took off the cover plate. Behind it, taped flat against the drywall, was an envelope in Carol's handwriting. Mike. My hands knew her before my eyes finished reading. Carol had pressed hard when she wrote, as if the paper might argue. I opened it at the kitchen table. "If you found this, something has gone wrong in the way I feared. Before you sign anything, before you agree to leave our home, before anyone convinces you that grief makes you incompetent, call Beverly. Not call a doctor, not call a child. Call Beverly. Beverly Shiner arrived the next morning with a purse large enough to hold secrets and a face that had known Carol before I did. They had grown up together through babies and bills and church basements and the kind of friendship that keeps receipts without being asked. She sat at my kitchen table and removed a sealed envelope. "Carol gave me this 6 months before she died," Beverly said. "Made me promise not to give it to you unless someone tried to move you out or take control." "She thought one of the kids would?" Beverly shook her head. "She thought Warren Vale might." The name entered the room and changed the temperature. Warren? Beverly did not answer quickly. I respected that. Carol said Warren knew how to make loneliness answer the door. That sentence should have angered me. Instead, it made me tired, because some part of me had already known it. Beverly opened Carol's envelope. Inside was a letter, a photocopy of an old church bazaar ledger, and 2 names written on a yellow sticky note. Mrs. Klein, Evelyn Parks. I knew Mrs. Klein. She lived across from me. She had sold her house 2 years after her husband died, then moved to a senior apartment in Parma and stopped coming to Sunday service. I did not know Evelyn Parks. Beverly did. Warren helped both of them, Beverly said. That is the phrase people used. Helped. She said it the way a mechanic says leak. Carol had written notes in the margins of the church ledger. Small discrepancies from a fundraiser 5 years earlier, donation envelopes Warren had collected, cash totals that shifted between the fellowship hall and the deposit slip. Nothing dramatic by itself, nothing a polite committee could not explain away. But Carol had never been fooled by smallness. She knew a crack did not need to be wide to matter. It only needed pressure. We visited Mrs. Klein that afternoon. Her apartment smelled like lavender spray and boiled tea. She looked smaller than I remembered, as if the move had folded her in half. Warren was kind, she said at first. Beverly asked about the buyer. Mrs. Klein's fingers tightened around her cup. He said the market was cooling. Said I should not wait. A friend of his knew someone who could pay cash. Was it a fair price? I asked. She looked at the window. I did not know until later. Evelyn Parks told us her story by phone. Warren had helped with bills after her stroke. She added him to an account for convenience. Convenience is a soft word. It can hide teeth. He always had a reason, Evelyn said. Gas, groceries, a repairman. A reimbursement I felt ungrateful asking. When I hung up, I thought of Warren on my porch, with Carol's favorite pastry in his hands. He had not broken into lonely houses. He had waited until grief opened the door. I called Frank Kessler before I called my children. Frank came over with a legal pad, a bad hip, and the expression he used when a pump was about to fail. Don't talk to Warren alone, he said, and don't sign paper because a man from church moisturizes his voice. By evening, Peter called from Dublin. Dad, Warren says you found some planning materials and got upset. Planning materials. Is that what he called them? Peter went quiet. I could hear the machinery of his life moving behind him. Relocation calls, work messages, a suitcase zipper, the whole busy weather of middle age. He says you're becoming suspicious of people trying to help. Peter, I said, when did Warren start reporting on me to you? Silence told me more than an answer would have. Susan drove in from Worcester the next morning. She had worry on her face before she had taken off her sunglasses. Daddy, we need to talk. At Priya Nair's office, she stopped talking. Priya had been Carol's attorney, small woman, silver hair, no wasted motion. Her office smelled like paper, coffee, and consequences. She placed a slim binder on the table. Your wife came to me 9 months before her death, Priya said. She was concerned that after she passed, your grief might be mistaken for incapacity and that a non-family helper might use access as leverage. Susan folded her hands in her lap. Peter looked at the binder as if it had insulted him. Priya continued, the house is in a trust preserving Mr. Mercer's right to remain there. No non-family helper can be added to accounts without written review from this office. Any change to power of attorney requires verification of intent. Any capacity claim requires 2 independent evaluations. Your wife was very clear. Then Priya opened her laptop. Carol also recorded a statement. Carol appeared on the screen wearing the blue sweater she used when hospitals were too cold. She looked thinner than I wanted to remember. Her eyes were still hers. Mike, she said, if you are watching this, I am sorry. I know you hate surprises unless they involve pie. I made a sound that was almost laughter. "I need you to stay," she said. "Walk my girls, feed them the ridiculous meals we both know they require. Fix what breaks, sit with the neighbors, grow old for both of us." Then her face changed, not harder, clearer. "Children, your father is grieving. He is not incompetent. He is lonely. He is not lost. Do not confuse the two, because it makes your decisions easier." Susan began to cry. Carol looked straight into the camera. "And Mike, listen to me. Loneliness will make any knock at the door sound like kindness. I am not asking you to be suspicious of everyone. I am asking you to remember that love does not need your signature by Friday." No one spoke. Priya let the silence do its work. The meeting happened 2 nights later in my living room. Not because I wanted drama, because secrecy had become Warren's tool, and tools should not be left in the wrong hands. Peter stood by the window with Maren beside him. Susan sat near the fireplace, twisting a tissue. Beverly took Carol's old chair. Frank stayed in the kitchen, where he could see both exits and pretend he was only there for coffee. Eli sat on the edge of the hallway bench, terrified and determined. Warren arrived carrying a folder of his own. He smiled at the room as if he had been asked to pray. "Mike," he said, "I wish you had called me before making this uncomfortable." "No," I said, "you wish I had called you before making it public." His smile remained. That was Warren's gift. He could keep the porch light on while the house burned behind him. Priya laid out the helper authorization form. Beverly laid out Carol's letter and the church ledger. Peter laid out Warren's emails to him, each one a little more concerned than the last. Susan laid out the appointment card from my refrigerator, the one Warren had copied wrong when he told people I'd missed it. Eli lifted his head. "I saw you taking pictures." The room stopped. Warren looked at the boy the way a man looks at a window he thought had curtains. "Young man," he said softly, "you may have misunderstood." Eli's face went pale, but he did not look away. "No, sir." Warren turned to me. "Mike, Carol trusted me." That was the moment. Not the papers, not the ledger, not the forms. That sentence, the theft of her name. I stood slowly, because old knees deserve warning. "No," I said. "Carol studied you." For the first time, Warren's face lost its arrangement. Not much, just enough. Priya spoke then, calm as a locked door. "Mr. Vale, you are not authorized to handle Mr. Mercer's mail, medical scheduling, financial documents, household records, or care decisions. Any further attempt to obtain access through misrepresentation will be answered formally." Warren gave a small, wounded laugh. "After everything I've done for this family." Maren, who had been quiet all night, said, "That's the sentence people use when the invoice is emotional." Warren looked at her. He did not like women who could name the trick. He gathered his folder. His hands were steady. That frightened me more than anger would have. At the door he turned back. "Mike, you will need people." "I have people," I said. "You just mistook yourself for one of them." He left without slamming the door. Men like Warren do not slam doors. They want witnesses to remember them as reasonable. The next weeks were not clean. Real endings rarely are. There were calls from church elders, 2 awkward apologies, 1 letter from Priya, and a long conversation with Mrs. Klein that ended with her saying she might visit the old street once the weather softened. Peter apologized first. "I liked that Warren was nearby," he said. "It made me feel less guilty." "Guilt is not a background check," I told him. "Susan cried in the kitchen and said she should have known better." "You saw concern," I said. He made a profession out of resembling it. Eli avoided me for 3 days, then appeared in the garage holding a broken hedge trimmer. "My mom says I shouldn't get involved in adult business. Your mother is generally wise. Was I wrong?" I handed him a screwdriver. "No. But being right can still cost you sleep. That is why you learn to be careful with it." Sam came with him the next week. He watered Carol's roses too much, then looked stricken when I told him. "More water isn't more love," I said. He nodded as if I had given him a rule for more than gardening. "Roots need air too," I told him. "Most living things do." Bonnie and Lucy kept us honest. Dogs do not respect emotional collapse when breakfast is due. Warren did not disappear. Men like Warren rarely give you the courtesy. I saw him once, at the grocery store, examining peaches with the serious tenderness of a saint in produce. He nodded at me. I nodded back. There are some battles you win by not pretending the person vanished. You simply stop opening the door. Months passed. The house remained a house. That may not sound like victory unless you have nearly watched yours become evidence against you. The kettle clicked in the morning. The garage smelled like oil and cedar. The hallway thermostat sat straight on the wall again. Ordinary as anything, which is how Carol would have liked it. A secret should do its work, then go back to looking like part of the house. Peter called more often and listened longer. Susan stopped treating care as a script she had to recite correctly. Warren sent me a book about confidence men and wrote in the margin, "Some people wear kindness like a rented suit." Beverly visited in spring. She stood in Carol's garden and looked at the roses. She knew, Beverly said. She knew everything, I said. No, Beverly said. She paid attention. People confuse the two. That was true. Carol had not been magic. She had been watchful. She had seen Warren ask questions beside a hospital bed that no friend needed answered. She'd seen him remember the value of houses too easily. She'd seen him arrive with help that always improved his access. Love did not make her blind. Love made her prepare. 1 year after I found the folder, I took Bonnie and Lucy past Mrs. Klein's old house. A young family lived there now. There were bicycles in the driveway and chalk stars on the walk. Eli was cutting grass 2 doors down. Sam was kneeling in my garden with a hand trowel, under strict instructions not to drown anything Carol had loved. I thought about Warren's last warning. You will need people. He had been right about that. Predators often are, in the shallow places. Need is real. Age is real. Loneliness is real. The lie is that need makes you available to whoever arrives first. I still talk to Carol sometimes, not because I think she is hiding in the walls, because 38 years of marriage gives a person permanent jurisdiction over your common sense. Every morning I open the door, and Bonnie and Lucy step into the maple-shadowed light. The house creaks. The kettle clicks. Somewhere in the garage, a tool waits for a hand that knows its weight. Carol did not save me from being lonely. She saved me from letting loneliness choose for me, and she loved me well enough to leave instructions.